You don't got no Jamaicans that you're gonna show this to, right? For real? Are you serious? Dude, I can't do this, bro. They're gonna know. They're gonna know. I'm not. I am a fake. They're gonna look at me and be like, she's whitewashed.
I know Spanish, not as much as I'd like to know. Same with English, but with Spanish, you're called the no sabo kid, and it hurts.
Can't miss my family that I don't remember. I can't miss friends I don't remember. But I do miss being part of, like, I think growing up, knowing that part, the culture, the history, the developments of how Mexico is right now.
Hello, my name is Bianca Lewis. I am a stability chemist, and I am from America, Zion, Illinois, but my family is from Jamaica. Parents are from two different parts of Jamaica, Spanish Town on my mom's side and Kingston on my late father's side.
Hola, mi nombre es Hilaria Aguilar. Mis padres son de Monterrey, Nuevo León, y yo nací aquí en Waukegan, Illinois.
Me llamo Ángel Emanuel Galeana Hernández. Mis padres son de Guerrero, México. Yo también soy de Guerrero, México.
It's me, my younger brother, he's 18, his name is Isaiah. We have the same dad, so when I say daddy or my dad, I'm talking about Isaiah and I, that's our dad. My older brother, Dante, I think he's about like 28, 29 now. He has a different dad. His dad unfortunately passed away too.
I have one brother, one sister, no, two sisters, and my parents. So 3 girls in total, one brother, and my mom and dad.
I have one younger brother and 2 younger sisters.
Prominent memory from my childhood is that my dad would always take me and my brother to McDonald's when we were younger, like maybe 2nd grade-ish. And I used to love it. It was not great looking back at how often I went to McDonald's. I was very obese. If I had those meals today, I would die. I would get sick because I have digestive issues, which stemmed from when I was a kid because I wasn't eating right. But it was pretty normal. Nothing really happened. I always thought it was a great thing that even though my parents weren't together, they weren't married, it was still nice that we all lived in the same house together, because in my little childhood heart, they loved each other. And it was like fairy tale, basically. I was always happy about that.
I remember getting into a lot of fights. I remember playing dolls, trampoline, like a lot of physical activities. Not what I see now. With my younger sister, who's like 11, she's not growing up the same. Very complete, 2 different worlds. My brother would throw scissors at me, and I'd run away. It would be like that. It was fun. It was fun. It was scary at the time, but now that I look back at it, it was fun. A lot of fist fights with my younger sister. I'd always win. Makes sense. And yeah, just a lot of physical things.
What I remember from my childhood, there's very few memories from Mexico. For the most part, I remember being with my family, playing with my brother. Very few memories of playing with my cousin, usually at our house.
Hay muchas cuentas que pagar y los niños necesitan cosas para la escuela. Solo pagamos los intereses de las tarjetas. La renta todavía no la completamos. ¿Y qué quieres que haga? Por el momento no puedo hacer nada más. Si no pasaras tanto tiempo frente a la tele tomando, podríamos estar mejor y podríamos salir adelante. ¿Acaso crees que no me canso, que no trato de sacar a esta familia adelante? Ah, ahora échame la culpa a mí. Pues es que si la tienes, Hernández.
I think the rose-colored glasses never truly came off when I was a kid, but they slipped a couple of times. I remember when I was 7 years old, and actually in this house, crazy. I was 7 years old, and my mom and dad were talking, like in the kitchen. They always just talk in the kitchen, and I was laughing and playing around, and I was at the entryway of the kitchen, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so fun, and I was laughing. And then I saw my dad grab a knife and he put it to my mom's neck, and I was like, oh, this isn't a joke. All I can remember is my mom saying, do it. You gonna do it in front of your daughter? Do it. And that's when I realized, not as much as a fairy tale as I maybe would have believed. Did it cause lasting scars? For a while. I have not talked about it in 7 years, so that's actually funny. But it wasn't, that was kind of like the shifting point. I'm like, oh, things aren't as nice as maybe I believed it to be.
When I was younger, I had, like I told you, I have a younger sister. We were playing with some rocks. And I don't know what was going through our head, but we put a bunch of rocks under my dad's car wheels, right? That's a kid thing. It's a kid thing to do, right? But the thing is, my sister, she had a great idea to throw a rock at my grandma. So she throws a rock at my grandma and it hits her face. You know, my dad goes insane. He loses it. I didn't throw any rocks, but we like locked eye contact. He saw me, and then, you know, the flight or fight response came in, and I decided to fucking fly, bro. I decided not to be there, so I started running, and got me. He beat me with a belt, and it was really bad. I remember it was under the light posts in front of my whole neighborhood. I don't know why, like, CPS wasn't called. I didn't know. And I remember the next day, I woke up with a bunch of bruises on my arms and legs. And I don't know if it's just a coping mechanism for my dad or Hispanics in general, but he asked me where I got those. And I could not have been more insulted, because the least you can do is remember.
I remember my mom was crying, and she couldn't stop crying. And we got into, I believe it was like a cab. And then we went onto a bus, and we went to go see some of the aunts my mom has in Acapulco. It was weird that my dad wasn't there. It was weird that my mom acted so protective. I remember when crossing the border, I had that same feeling of panic, like all around me. That's how it felt like, panic everywhere. We had to be quiet. We had to keep running. I had no idea what's going on. Like, why were we running through a desert? So we did get caught once. I can't remember if it was once or twice. It felt like we had to try again. To me, it's like, why are we even doing this? Can't we just go back? It was easier. My life was easier back then. It gives you this weird feeling because as a child, you don't know, because no one explains it to you. No one stops you and tells you this is what's going to happen. And this is why we're doing it. You're just told, kind of shut up and go. I can tell that it took a lot out of a person. Just because by the time we crossed over, we were shoved in a car. Everyone was still anxious, and we didn't really know what to do. You can tell that we were kind of just forced into this scenario that no one knew how it was going to end.
So I am a lesbian. And when I told my dad, I told him first because I knew it was going to be easier. And just like personally, I knew it was just going to be easier. I told my mom. She did not have a great reaction. She kind of had like a, oh, this can't be kind of reaction, right? She's more Americanized, I would say. Because if this was like in the country, if you would have even mentioned the word gay, you would get stoned, you'd get killed. They'd beat you on the streets. They even have a term for like gay people or gay men in Jamaica, which is batiman. You know, bati, like booty, and man, like man. And it's basically equivalent to the F word. So if you ever hear somebody calling you that, it's not good. I have depression and anxiety. I can get the help that I need in America and maybe not feel too ostracized for getting that help, right? In Jamaica, you are weak. You are useless. You're messed up. You're broken. There's no point. Oh, it's okay. You said your parents they verbally abused you. That's not even a sentence. That's not even a term in Jamaica.
I see my American roots coming from my education. I've known that a lot of my family in Mexico, well, their goal is to marry a man, a wealthy man, to provide for her. And that's just not in the cards for me. I'd rather just make my own money. Second thing would be apart from being Mexican here in the United States, I have my papers, so I don't have the fear of being deported. I have that luxury, that privilege of living here with the papers. That's another one. And lastly would be the aesthetics. I lean towards more mild colors, more soft colors, not like this kitchen right here. I still like it.
Okay, so even in my home, I don't have as much decoration as a lot of Mexican households do, with their flowers, colors, ornaments of kinds. And to me, I like things more simple, less distracting. Because to me, I believe I don't need a lot in life to live happily or to feel comfortable where I'm at. For me, especially when I was younger, I would try to see what the people around me liked, what they sang about, what they talked about, what they saw. And I was like, okay, I want to see, listen, and read that. And I would do it. And to try to understand, at least what's going on around me. And being exposed to that, I kind of didn't look to what's going on in Mexico, what's going on where I'm from. It wasn't until I was in college that I was actually interested in the Mexican culture, language, and events.
My family is the bridge to Jamaica. If my family was German or Korean, it'd be the same situation. It would be the exact same situation, honestly. But they're also keeping me a little bit, or at least they did when I was little, because I'm an adult now, I can go out myself. But they were keeping me from kind of knowing about Jamaica and all that stuff. And you cannot be the reason to keep somebody from knowing about your culture and then shame them for it years later. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. And it's kind of like, that's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they're doing, In terms of doing stuff to be more Jamaican, on Instagram, I have this person I follow. It's that girl cooks healthy or whatever, right? That's her Instagram handle. And she has Jamaican food, but it's healthier, right? Jamaican food is it tastes good. Expanding my waistline, which I can't really have personally. I tried to involve myself, what's the alternative to ackee and saltfish? Oh, ackee and pork, that's really good. Okay, can we have that next time? And just try to get my mom to cook a little bit more different stuff and all that stuff. I always wanted to know about the accent or certain terminology that Jamaicans use. Batiman, that's one of them, unfortunately. I know what that means. Patois, I understand it because I wanted to know. And my grandma and my dad, they did not care. It's not like they were purposefully speaking Patois so that I could understand it, but I knew it because of them. They just spoke it naturally. So everybody's coming over my house and they're just like, what are they saying? What's your grandma saying? Because that's what they're saying now to me. Whoa. You can understand your grandma, and that's shocking to me. Because apparently, they couldn't understand my grandma. My cousins and my brothers, they're Jamaicans. They could not understand my grandma at all. She's from the country. She's not from the city. from the ghetto in like Jamaica and all that stuff. So she really has a thick accent. But my brother and I, we can just understand her perfectly.
I think my Mexican roots are the ones that were engraved into me, like cleaning the house. But I've been trying to get rid of some as well, like listening to a man just because he's a man. I've been trying to outgrow those. Another part of Mexican, I think the culture. I think my family is very connected to their roots, especially my parents, right? So they try to connect us as well as much as possible. Another way that I see my Mexican roots come out would be me taking care of my younger sister. I know in a lot of American families, it's usually get a babysitter and call it quits. But I had to raise my younger sister. I'm not saying that to be exaggerated, like or be dramatic. It's very true. She would call me mom when we were younger. And I was 8. It's not okay. But yeah, I've raised her. And when she grew up, she knew that I was no longer her mom. But to this day, she comes to me more than she comes to my mom.
Like for me, like even though I don't believe myself to be completely 100% part of the Mexican culture, like I still feel accepted by Mexicans that I talk to, that I see, that I come in contact with. And I mainly see this a lot in celebrations and parties, in the events of culture, in the Mexican culture.
Ok. Ya pónselos ahí en un platito, ponlas.
I've heard that Chicanos get a lot of crap from Mexicans saying that, oh, you're not fully Mexican. But it's like, you can learn to be part of your culture. You can learn things from your culture. And to me, I like learning about my culture. And I like accepting the fact that I will learn about my culture.
They think I'm African American. Everybody in this country looks at me and I'm African American. And there's no point in like, what am I gonna say? Put pressure on myself because I'm like, oh, I'm not actually American. They wanna say I'm black or they wanna say I'm African American. I'm African American. So my ex is a Black American. And she would talk to me about certain like racial issues that like I realized, not even racial issues, just Black culture that I'm not a part of, like the green beans and the it's stuffing, but she called it something different. I have no dressing, I think she called it, for turkeys and like the soul food mac and cheese. I kind of get it, but I don't eat like that. And I'm like, huh. When she really brought up the dressing, I was like, I have no idea what that is. Oh, you mean stuffing? And she looked at me like, you don't already know? I'm like, ooh, not good. In elementary school, they would make fun of you. If you were mixed, they called you Oreo. You're half black, half white. If you didn't act like the stereotypical Black person or whatever, right? Yeah, what's up? You know, like the ghetto Black person, you're seen as an Oreo, right? Because you have some white in you. I felt like an Oreo. I felt like I transported myself back in the day when all those kids were making fun of me. That's how I genuinely felt talking to her. And I couldn't say anything.
Being a Mexican American also affected me financially. I've learned that being poor and Mexican almost always coexist, which is very sad to say. When my parents came here, they would take the lowest paying jobs just to make ends meet. That would be, let's say, 14-hour days, 14 hours working in the sun. That would be cleaning. That would be a dishwasher. That would be the paleteros in Chicago, like making their own businesses, or even the flea market. like la pulga. They would sell their own things knowing that working as a dishwasher isn't gonna pay the bills. Like, they'd do anything for it. If they were to take or apply to jobs that were a little less or more beneficial to them, like more mediocre type jobs, they would be more at risk for being deported. These people would ask for social securities. They would not have them. And based off where they were, they could instantly be deported like that. Like, not even a second thought, you turn in your applications and it would just, deportation right away. It was really bad. So in order to stay safe, they would just stay to the low-paying jobs. I think I have a harder time fitting into my American side. When I go into, recently I had just gotten to Chicago, and there's a lot of people, minorities as well, but when I'm filled or surrounded by white people, I feel like the most like flight or fight. So I feel like at any moment something's gonna happen, or they're gonna look at me type of way, and I think that's not healthy for my anger issues. It's like the combination of like anger and sadness, because I realize I have this feeling towards them and I shouldn't have it. When I'm with minorities, Black, Hispanic, Asian, like, it doesn't matter, I feel safer with them than I could ever feel with a white person.
You are seen as an outsider by people who consider themselves Americans, or who try to be as American as possible, even if they're from a different culture themselves. Okay, let's say the language isn't an issue. You still like different things. You still enjoy different foods, different arts, different clothes, different music. That's to the point where you end up being seen as an outlier. Like, when I go to people's parties, especially if they're white, you see this. You see just the lack of any other culture. So being introduced into that, you feel like an outlier. You are also seen as an outlier. Yes, you can blend in. Like, I could blend in and start talking without an accent and start saying I like the same things and act the same way and all this stuff. But at some point, you don't get to express yourself. You don't express what you like. You don't express how you fully like to dress. And I feel like that takes away from what your culture, like from with who you are. In America, you lose a lot of it. You lose what it means to grow up within a certain culture. You lose the likes, the music, the food, the dances even. You lose a lot of it. It's very like lonely. You become very lonely because even with people within your own culture, you can't even connect with them at some points because you forget.
All my family, my whole family is Jamaican. So when they host parties, I'm always attending. And sometimes I don't really understand what they're talking about. I cannot relate to them. They're talking about going on the bamboo tree and climbing this and shaking that and having to go to this one mountain that everybody knows about, but I don't know about because nobody took the time to tell me. So in that regard, I do feel like I'm left out of it. When they speak Patois, which is a Jamaican Creole, I would say, like a broken English kind of language for Jamaicans, I can understand it, but they choose not to speak it around me because they think that I can't understand them, or they'll just claim that I don't understand it or too, which is, it has a lot of distance between us because of that. So there's kind of like they're egging it on.
As we were opening gifts, me and my siblings got up and we went to my dad, and we're taking off the money. It's a box filled with money and you can just unwrap it. And we started doing that and it's not working. And I looked to the audience, right? Everyone's looking, I was like, Bauso, which is not right. I said Bauso instead of Bausa, right? The A and O, that's all I got mixed up. And everyone's like, no, you're a no sabo kid. And everyone's giggling. But I don't think they were giggling as in like bad, you know, with malintent. I don't think it was like that. I think it was more of, haha, funny, funny, funny. But then, I don't know, it was hurtful at the time because it was just like, I just got one fucking letter mixed up, and I'm a no sabo kid now. It's because Hispanic culture is very judgmental. If anything, there's that. Hispanics are judgmental. Like, if you're labeled a no sabo kid, that will follow you to the end of time.
So it wasn't until college that I started thinking, okay, what if I don't like this? What is out there? And that's when I started listening to more Spanish music, listening to some books in Spanish to see what the difference was. Started watching more movies by Spanish actors. Sure, I don't do it all the time. And I've noticed that, American movies, I like those more because I grew up with them. But being exposed to that, it really showed me that the American culture really took over most of my personality growing up. And with that, I'm basically now seeing more of what my culture originally was. And to me, it feels like I'm starting from scratch of what I like that's Mexican.
It's not a big portion of who I am. It's just a part of me. It's a part of Bianca. Being Jamaican and being American is a part of me, right? It kind of defines who I am and how I talk to people, right? Again, I'm a little harsh, right? I'm a little harsh when I talk to people, but that's part of my culture. That's part of the Jamaican culture that I grew up with. The people that I grew up with just spoke like that. So it shaped me to who I am, but I'm not going to feel resentment with it because it truly doesn't matter that much. I can always learn about it,
And by, having little moments where we're all laughing and we're all like smiling and it's good. It's good. It's good to have a culture. It's good to feel like a family with people who are strangers. That's very nice. Like people who I have just met and they're Mexican, you're Mexican, I'm Mexican. There's a unity there that I have a luxury of having. It feels nice. It feels nice to be part of a community. And I just try and focus on those and hope that everything gets better from here on out.
So it's not for me to feel lonely. It's just because I'm not the only one that shares that. And I understand that. I understand that I'm always going to find someone who feels the same way. But for someone who doesn't understand that, I wouldn't know what to say to them. Besides, you're not alone. There's millions of people that did the same thing I did, that were taken here as kids, didn't grow up in their culture, put into situations that didn't encourage their culture. So I might feel lonely at the time when I'm exposed to it, but I know I'm not the only one that feels that way.